I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, August the 23rd, brought to you in part by Talive by Norbrook. Talive is a telithromycin injection. It's an affordable alternative to Draxxin. Talive is a ready-to-use single-shot, low-volume dose. It's rapidly absorbed and delivers proven efficacy against a wide range of diseases. For more information, go to norbrook.com. Also, Unionville livestock markets and Creston livestock markets up there in north central Missouri and south central Iowa. They had the big barbecue special at Creston on Wednesday, and even though it was kind of after the board was down big on Tuesday, they had some really impressive quotes there on some really fancy cattle. Good sale there, had about 3,000 head. They're doing a good job there. Not a lot of cattle moving right now, so the next sale for them will be their regular sale, and that's slated for September the 6th on Friday. They'll have their regular sales on Friday going into the fall, and then have special sales on Wednesday. Unionville Livestock Market's got a sale the 27th here this Tuesday, and it is going to be a regular sale plus a bred cow sale. Calves will start selling at 10:30 at Unionville on Tuesday, and the bred cows at noon. Protect yourself. Don't make a mistake. We're in a down market, people. Sure as I say that, the thing will go back to the moon, but it feels like a down market. Our technicals are bearish. We've lost a lot of ground. We occasionally get some higher futures, but the big days, outpace all the few higher days that we see. But when we see these bounces like we got on Thursday, those are opportunities. You need to protect yourself. You need to take advantage of the LRPs. When the board's up like that, you're going to get better price to dally up to there. And you need to take that opportunity to protect the price on what you're going to sell your cattle for. You can LRP unborn calves. If you're a fall calver and you've got unborn calves fixing to hit the ground, you can LRP those now. So use these bounces in the market right now to protect yourself. The market's still pretty good. It's just fallen quite a ways back over all-time highs. But as we're going into the fall right now, there's no drive in the fat cattle market. We've got a lot of calves coming, even though our calf crop is smaller. We got a lot of calves coming. We're not going to see prices come back to where they were, 3 or 4 weeks ago. So you need to take advantage of the bounces that you see on the board to protect yourself and get through this the best way you can. Now we got a cattle on feed report coming out here today on Friday, 2 o'clock Central, and I don't know, it's a head scratcher. If it would happen to be bullish, we could see a little bit of recovery here, but tell you what, the average of the analysts' guess is very close. Their guesses were all in a very tight range, so they're feeling very confident about this cattle and feed report, and likely it's going to come in very close to what they called. They got cattle on feed, your inventories for August 1st coming in at 100% of a year ago this time. Placements during July at 104, and marketing's at 108.2. Man, they've got the marketing's way up there, so it's going to be hard to beat that. But placements is always where we see a little wiggle room there, so we'll see that. And like I mentioned a day or two ago, if we see lighter placements, I'm afraid the industry is going to see it as us keeping heifers back and starting to replenish our cow supply, which is still 3 years away. But as soon as they see that, that's going to be looked on as a bearish signal probably too. But I've been watching the shit show that I called at the Democratic National Convention there, and man, I tell you what, it is scary. And you guys hate it when I get political, or I think 99% of you like it just fine when I get political. It's just that 1% that likes to whine and make comments on here, which that's cool. You guys are still watching, so that's fine. And we do see the comments on there, but tell you what, Kamala Harris is not for agriculture, and she's definitely not for cattle people. Now I realize we only make up about 1% of the population, probably less now that she's let 20 million illegals come over the southern border while she was border czar there. But you look at the few things that we've heard that are part of her agenda, and we heard them just the other night, and one of them is putting price controls on. That does not work. You can't do that. That's a recipe for disaster there. So price controls, the Green New Deal, she's all about that. She was a co-sponsor to that. That is not good for cattle producers, because we have yet to teach our cattle not to burp and fart, and that is ruining this planet, people. And if you don't believe it, just read some of that left-wing propaganda that they put out. But I tell you what, for you people that are lucky enough to have large tracts of land, especially, they have got on her agenda a tax on unrealized assets. That's things that you own on paper that have increased in value. She wants you to pay tax on that, even if you haven't sold anything. I tell you what, it's not going to be good. You know, we've been going through a pretty good deal there with Trump, and not having tax on inherited things like that. But they're wanting to bring all that back. There's a lot of tax involved in the little bit of agenda that we've seen with this Democratic Party there. But you guys have to make your own decisions. But I wish you guys would sure look at those things before you do it. But talking about the Democratic National Convention, it reminds me of the one that Chicago hosted in 1968. And that was before I was born. But it put me in mind of a friend of mine that I met in my years when I ran the USDA Market News Office in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And I made a friend out there, or I made a lot of friends out there, but one particular friend that I made by the name of Bill Nickel. And he's a Vietnam vet, and not just taking pictures or in the motor pool or something like that. I mean, he was fighting, hand-to-hand fighting, and spent a whole year over there on a tour of duty. And was involved in some really scary things. He was there during the Tet Offensive, and I tell you what, it changed him his whole life. And any of you guys that knew him knew that it changed him a little bit. But Bill Nickel was my good friend. He helped me move while I was there. We did it in 2 loads. He had a huge aluminum trailer that he hauled double-deck veal calves in, and man, we loaded our whole house, or townhouse, up and moved to a house out in the country while I was there. He helped me do it all, and I mean, it didn't take long because he never let grass grow under his feet. But Bill and I became very good friends, and I was a homesick kid, freshly married, and in a strange place. And he was from the town of Northeast Maryland. And so I would go down there a lot of times on Saturdays and meet up with him for breakfast at a Greasy Spoon there in Northeast. And we would just have a ball all day long. He was the only guy that knew anything about cattle down there. They called him Cowboy down there in Maryland. I called him Wild Bill. But it was only about 50 or 60 miles down there from where I was at in New Holland, Pennsylvania, down to northern Maryland. And I always enjoyed going down when I did. We would haul cattle for people. We would dehorn and castrate cattle that people had around their place, and they would hand them fistfuls of money. And it was we always had a good time down there. But I got to know Bill really well. And when he completed his tour of duty in Vietnam, he came back, and he still had time to not really serve, but he still had time before he was going to be released from the Army. And one of the things that he did is he went to the 1968 Democrat National Convention in Chicago. And he was one of the troops that they took in there to control the crowd. And you know, you've seen all that about the protests that went on, and it was mostly hippies protesting the Vietnam War. And he would tell me stories about that, and he said, you know, it was wild over there in Vietnam, but he said that week that I spent in Chicago, it got pretty wild there too. And I think it was Grant Park, he told me that they had to hold the line on. They didn't want some of those protesters getting any closer to the convention hall than that park right there. So those people were, you know, being hippies in the park there, and they'd set up tents, and they thought it was Woodstock again, and they was doing all that kind of stuff. And occasionally they would rush those army troops that were there, and they would have to hold them back because they had to hold the line on that. And he said they'd come up there and you just had to beat them back, and he said it really wasn't too tough. But he said one night while he was there in Chicago, and they were trying to break through the line to get up closer to the convention hall, they sent their women and they had them get buck naked to charge the line. And he said, you ain't seen nothing until you've seen 500 buck naked hippie women coming at you full throttle wanting to break through the line. And I said, well, what did you guys do? And he said, we put the butt of our rifles right between their eyes when they got close enough. And that was just one of the many stories that Bill Nickel told me. But I've been thinking about that, and I was wanting to get a hold of him. We haven't stayed really close, but when we talk, I was always glad to talk to him and bring back old memories and things. And been meaning to call him all week. And on Thursday, I found his number. I called him. He always answered before, and he didn't answer. And then I looked him, or Googled him, I guess, and looked up and found out that he was killed in a farm accident almost 2 years ago. And I've been bummed out about that the rest of the day. But I tell you what, he was a patriot. He was a good friend of mine, had good stories. He was a calf trader. He would buy those little Holstein heifer calves out of the singles sales there at Vintage, Pennsylvania, and in New Holland, Pennsylvania. He had a recipe. He would take those calves back to his place. He would bathe them. He would give them different kinds of electrolytes. He would, in 1 or 2 or 3 days, he would have those calves that looked like they were about to die and never got any colostrum, of course. He would have them shining and then get them into the graded sale. And that was back whenever, you know, those Holstein heifer baby calves were bringing $1,200 or $1,300 a head, and he might have bought them for $30 or $40 a head. I mean, he was printing money. But that deal kind of changed. It's all changed now. But I tell you what, I had a good time with Bill Nickel, and I'm going to miss him, especially now that I know he's gone. I feel guilty for not keeping up with him. And if you guys have a friend like that, get in touch with him. Tell them you appreciated their friendship. But I tell you what, the market's still pretty good. I mean, we think it's fallen completely out of bed, and maybe I'm over-exaggerating it, but I don't think so. I mean, these calves and these sales this week dropped like a rock, or not the calves, but the yearlings. We ain't seeing too many calves yet, but there's still some excitement about the calves. We saw it on Superior Livestock on their video on Thursday, the Bighorn Classic there. I saw one that Bailey Blue put out on his Snapchat and kind of drew my attention to it. It was the Rettig Livestock out of Wolf Point, Montana. Now they sold 640 steer calves. Wow. Just think what kind of place they got. 640 steer calves to weigh 400 pounds in late October and early November. Everything was done right, but not too many fancy bells and whistles on them. But 640 400-pound steer calves for fall bring $4 a pound. That's pretty impressive, guys. And then if you read through the way they were going to deliver them, they're going to gather them, sort them from the cows. They're going to be ballers, of course. Load those calves on goosenecks, haul them 25 miles, unload them, and then weigh them on the ground. That could take a while, guys. But they're struggling up in that part of the country. I talked to some people about the fires that they're having in northern Wyoming up into Montana. KC, Wyoming is really suffering, guys. And I tell you what, I haven't seen a lot of advertisement about it, not much media coverage on it because they're too busy with politics. But I talked to some people, ranchers up there that are really suffering. They had a lot of grass from a year ago, and then it got dry this summer. It turned into tinder fuel there, and man, it's going to be hard to get out, and they're not having very good luck trying to get that fire under control. But you know, I told you guys you need to protect yourself. I want you to protect yourself and be able to take advantage of this market that we've had, and it's still here. I mean, we're losing it a little bit all the time, but Livestock Risk Services, that's Dakota Moss. I talk about him all the time there. He offices in the Exchange Building at the Oklahoma National Stockyards there in Oklahoma City. He wants you guys to know that despite wanting to do that, they can't write LRPs today on Friday because that's a new rule with the Cattle on Feed report coming out. They can't write new LRPs, but he can get you, you know, get your application in and get you fixed up as soon as he's able to. But yeah, you need to take a look at those guys, and I know I keep harping on them, but I know a lot of you guys are not doing them and don't know enough about them. You can make one phone call, guys. Check them out at livestockriskservices.com. Talk about a big cow sale special that's coming up here tonight. Kingsville Livestock Auction in Kingsville, Missouri. That's west central Missouri, cow country, people. The Einstein family there, they are going to have a huge special cow pair and bull sale there. Starts at 6 o'clock tonight on Friday, August the 23rd. They are having a huge sale. I mean, just deal after deal after deal of reputation consignments of all running ages of bred cows. They've got some bred heifers in there that'll be better than you can find anywhere else. A lot of pairs. And some of them pairs got some good sized calves on them. They've got some breeding bulls there coming in from the Langford outfit and from ABO farms there, which are local. Most of the cows, of course, are going to be black or red Angus. I did notice one consignment on there is gray Bramer cows bred to Hereford bulls. That's how you get those fancy Brayford tiger stripes, guys. And they got one consignment of those on. Check them out on DVAuction.com. Call them before 6 o'clock and get approved. And then you can view that sale and bid freely there online at DVAuction.com. Let's talk about your board on Thursday. Getting close to the end of the week here. August live cattle up 132, more recovery there at 182.55. October up 127 at 175.90. That doesn't sound great for just a couple of months out and into our fall, having fat cattle, you know, on the board at under 176. You know, we're used to the 190s, have been for a long time. Your back months on live cattle up 115 to up 137. So like I said, when you see these bounces, take advantage of them. August feeder cattle up 272. That was a good gain. 241.97. September up 252 at 238.20. Your back months are all up as little as $1.50, and that was on the furthest out traded month, to closer up being up 257. But pretty good day on the board. Those are going to get more rare all the time, but like I said, those are good bounces and those are opportunities, guys. How about December corn? It was up 3/4 cent a bushel at $3.94 1/4. November beans up 5 1/4 cent at $9.66 3/4. And Kansas City hard red winter wheat for December up 1 1/4 cent a bushel at $5.46 1/4. Your fat cattle trade, it slowed down. We saw a little bit of trade Tuesday and Wednesday, and it was all lower, but we saw people, you know, they were fearful and they wanted to get as best they could for the cattle. And then we see some support on the board on Thursday. That snuffed out all the trade for the most part. So we've got a lot of work to do here on Friday, and it, just like last week, it's going to have way too much to do with how the board opens. And it'll be interesting to see if the rest of the trade happens before the cattle on feed report comes out or after. But Iowa sold just 200 head on Thursday, 18,000 for the week. all at 186 live on Thursday. Nebraska sold 500, 12,300 for the week. Live sales on Thursday in Nebraska 184, and dress sales at 293. Now these are all quite a bit lower, guys. Kansas sold 600 on Thursday, 3,500 for the week. All they sold on Thursday in Kansas was some mixed bag steer and heifer pens at 183. Texas did not have any reported sales. I did see one fat cattle auction to report a market. It wasn't big, but we're not selling many cattle direct, so what the heck. Sheldon, Iowa, the auction there, they had a light test of fat cattle. The conventional steers sold from 182 to 187. Some programmed, non-implanted or drug-free fat steers and heifers from 185 to 189.75, and that's going to be more than we see on a direct basis this week. Box beef cutout values were a little bit higher, and the box beef cutouts have been holding pretty well. Of course, they don't have anything to do with the volatile board or what's going on out there. It's just what they're selling, just hand to mouth to those wholesalers there. But choice cuts were up 78 cents at $315.99. Packers are going to be well into black this week or next. Selects up 95 cents at $302.03. Your slaughter up through the first 4 days of the week, 484,000. That's 8,000 better than last week, just 7,000 less than the same week a year ago. Talk about what else is going on. Legacy Beef Cooperative. Now, we've been talking about how this outfit works, and I'm going to attach that huge interview video at the end of this Feeder Flash episode again so you guys can watch it. But the Legacy Beef Cooperative and Cattlemen's Heritage, which is the beef plant that they are building right close to Council Bluffs, Iowa there, they're doing things different, and they want this to be a way where farmer feeders, people that retain their cattle when they're feeding, it'll give them another way to handle the risk a little bit. Box beef, it stayed strong this week. I just mentioned that a while ago, amid this topsy-turvy board that's more turvy than it is topsy. But your box beef hasn't paid much attention to that. That's the way they are going to purchase cattle. It's going to be based off box beef cutouts, guys. And so if you would like to become a member of that cooperative, which gives you the opportunity to send cattle into that plant, check them out at legacybeefcoop.com. Talk about our feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DVAuction late in the day on Thursday, 7-day moving average, just like CME index, based on an 800-pound cash auction steer up through your middle 12 states. It's lower again, of course. I mean, all of our sales have been lower this week. 240, 248, down another 205, and that thing has lost a lot of ground. And it is back all the way up to where it is now under the CME cash feeder cattle index that fell so hard over the weekend, last weekend, when they turned in all those directs that were so much lower. But latest CME cash feeder cattle index 240, 267. Talk about your big sales on Thursday, and really just one big sale to test your market, and that was Farmers and Ranchers Livestock in Salina, Kansas. 3,900 there. Feeder steers $5 to $9 lower, similar to the auctions earlier in the week. Feeder heifers $5 to $10 lower. Salina was your NationalBeefWire stick-out sale of the day, just to get a feel for the market, and it was mostly still big yearlings coming off those tall grass pastures up there on the north side of the Flint Hills. But they had 938 8-weight steers in Salina. They averaged 857 with a weighted average price of $237.88. And I don't argue with the trend being a lot lower there, guys. But 1,172 head of 9-weight steers, Farmers and Ranchers Livestock, averaged 941, the weighted average price of $229.30. That's actually not bad for nearly 1,200 9-weight steers, and they're averaging nearly $950. They did have a few deals of 10 weights that are not on this report. Those 10-weight steers were bringing from 221 to 224 mostly. Look at the heifers, 164, not too many heifers, 164 7-weight heifers, average 746 at 233.76, and 204 head of 8-weight heifers averaged 853 at 223.71. Some individual quotes from all around. How about Sisseton Livestock Auction in South Dakota? 66 steers weighed 910 and bring 243 1/4 on Thursday. Thought that was awfully good. How about Paris Stockyards in Paris, Kentucky? Been a DV auction broadcaster for a long time. They do a good job. 82 steers weighed these were heifers, excuse me. 82 heifers weighed 622 and bring 259.75. It was a steer price. Bluegrass Stockyards, of course we broadcast all the locations of Bluegrass Stockyards in Kentucky, but Stanford usually has a lot of loads of yearlings there on a Thursday, and they did again this past Thursday, or this Thursday. 66 steers weighed 716, bring 268.70. Thought that was awfully good. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Thursday, your Macrocin, no BS, top quote for the day, come out of Columbus Sales Pavilion in Columbus, Nebraska, was 53 steers, weighed 838, and bring 255. And that's your feeder flash for Friday. I'm Corbett Wall with this feeder flash feature. I'm here with Chad Tinniger from Legacy Beef Co-op and Cattlemen's Heritage. And we're going to give you some information about getting in on the ground floor of a co-op that's going to own part of Cattlemen's Heritage, a new privately owned packing plant. Hopefully will give you an opportunity to stay profitable and stay in the cattle feeding business and compete with the big four packers. How you doing today, Chad?
Good, Corbett. Glad to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about this new and exciting venture that you got going?
Yeah, I'd love to. So we started out, Legacy Co-op is a outshoot of Cattlemen's Heritage Beef Company, the new processing plant outside of Council Bluffs. That'll be 525,000 head a year. We'll be processing right outside of Council Bluffs off of the I-29 corridor over there. We got about 132 acres. We've cleared the land. We're ready to break ground next spring. And Legacy Co-op will be the supply of the cattle that will feed that plant with the producer involvement.
Okay, so all the cattle that come into that plant will be through Legacy Co-op.
That is the goal, yes. We want to make sure that the producer has a say in how the plants run, the say in how the market works. All these things that we as producers, when I put my producer cap on, I want to get the best value for my cattle. Well, I don't think there's any way I can ever get the best value for my cattle if I don't participate in the processing end of it, because obviously in the last decade we've seen very clearly that the only way we're ever going to get what we think we deserve is to actually participate in the ownership.
Okay, so you say these co-op members are going to have a say in what goes on at the plant. How's that going to work?
So how we've set up the co-op is it's buying shares. One share is one delivery obligation a year. So there's 525,000 shares up for sale. Once you deliver your cattle, what you're going to gain in the beginning is you're going to get access to a grid. Everybody knows how grid works, premiums and discounts. But our grid's going to be tied to the box beef cutout. We are not going to tie it to the CME. We fundamentally believe that the CME does not represent the cattle fundamentals in the country on a day-to-day basis. I think we could all agree to that. There's no traders in the pits anymore. There's no human contact. It's computer algorithms trading on headlines, and we're at the mercy of it. So beginning, the fundamental belief is let's tie it to the box beef cutout. At least then we know we got a fair shake. You also, if you're a member of the co-op, you get a $25 bonus every time you deliver. So automatically it's $25 more than you would have got anywhere else. And then at the end of the day, for buying into the co-op, that co-op is going to have roughly, give or take, 20% ownership in Cattlemen's Heritage Beef Company. So true ownership in the plant, in the company, in the brand, whatever we can create out of this, you have ownership in and get a margin in those profits.
So these unit shares, you assume they're going to gain in value as time goes on.
Every other company that we've looked at like this in the pork industry, there's more of these companies with producer involvement. All those shares just increase in value. You can sell them, you can, your kids can inherit them, pass it down, but ultimately you have a say in how the system works that you're participating in.
So you're offering producers an opportunity to get in on the ground floor.
Yeah, I've been in this business my whole life, and we as producers, my whole life we've been saying, you know, we don't have any say in how we sell our product, what comes from it. We're at the mercy of everybody. This is an opportunity to be in the ground floor at the cheapest you're going to get in, to actually take ownership in a company that you'll participate in. You know, we've set it up. The Cattlemen's Heritage will have its own board. The co-op will have its own board. They will work together hand in hand in an advisory board. Each board will have 2 members of the other. So we have true ownership in the game. So when we talk about how are we going to sell cattle or how's the grid going to work exactly, you're going to have a seat at the table with us deciding those very things.
So the plan itself, you're expecting to pretty much run on a consistent margin then, and then the extra money is going to be premiums for the producer?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty simple system. You tie a grid to a set point. We're going to tie it to the box beef cutout. Then you have to plant production. You can't break the plant, right? It costs X amount to run. You minus that out, and then you start on quality of cattle. You're still going to be paid for quality cattle on a premium discount basis. That would be very similar to how grid works today. One thing we are looking at pretty closely that we might change, you know, especially when you get discounts on 4s and 5s. Right. In today's world, in reality, there's not really much of a discount on a 4. And what's heading coming up that a lot of people probably don't realize, but 45Z, it's a huge tax credit that's coming on the tax code for anything biofuels. That's what all the ethanol industry is doing. That's what they're talking about. That's why they're paying you. Well, our fats and tallows in the cattle are worth gold right now going to the biodiesel. And we're not getting a part of that. And there's going to be yet another revenue stream that we won't see. So, you know, when you start adding up all the value adds that we as producers do, that we don't participate in, at a certain point in time, all of us producers are just saying, I'm doing the most I will do to create value that I don't get to participate in.
So we talked about the cattle. What kind of cattle are you looking for?
We're just really looking for northern western genetics, right? That's going to be the cattle, the kind of cattle we feed where we are. If you put a pin in Council Bluffs, that's where the plant will be. You go 300 miles in any direction, that's a lot of high quality cattle. And so we're not going to limit it to just black hided or anything like that. It'll be just all quality cattle because the system's still set up. You deliver quality, you'll make more money.
Okay, so no particular program. Yeah. It's just where you're at on the globe, that's the kind of cattle you want.
That's exactly right.
Type cattle.
Yeah, and the system will work that if somebody thinks they're going to deliver really bad cattle, the negatives will still be there. Yeah. So it doesn't work. It still functions the same. And within that, over time, again, will there be programs that maybe develop like anything does? There could be. If there's more value at the end, of course, why wouldn't we bring it back into the plant? And then again, the co-op will own 20% of the plant, so it's a true dividend at the end of the year.
So are you looking at that Cattlemen's Heritage having a retail label?
Yeah.
Okay,
so the end goal is create a brand. Okay. So we've talked a lot about the last 3 years. We're 3 years into due diligence of this plant. That's why we're so confident in where we are today. What we've discovered is the cattle industry has done the worst job ever of telling its story of its greatest asset, and that's the farmers and ranchers and producers. We have all these amazing men and women working every day in this industry. We don't tell their story.
Right.
You know, so we're going to tell the story. Our marketing is going to be, you know, look at these family farmers, look at the ranchers, look at what they do every day. When they don't do a good job, they lose farms. They lose their livelihood. So you better believe if anything in the world of doing the best quality for what you're putting on your kitchen table, it comes out of our farmers and ranchers.
How are you going to compete with the Big Four?
So there's a couple ways. We have done 3 years of due diligence to figure out why plants don't work when they don't work. What causes a failure, right? Undercapitalized, we have the capital. Bad location, that I cannot overstate having a bad location. We're outside of Council Bluffs. There's 1 million people right outside that door. So we have plenty of work. The other thing we look at is, how do you compete? That's the question, right? How do you compete? Well, the co-op will be a supply of cattle. That's a bunch of producers that have signed up to deliver cattle because they want to share in the upside profits. So on the front side, you can't outbid the cattle. Those cattle are already committed. They're coming in, and they're committed because they're going to get rewarded better. Mm-hmm. So we know we'll have the cattle supply coming into the plant. Then selling the beef, what we found over the last 3 years is, as frustrated as we get as producers that we can only really sell to a handful of companies, on the retail side, there's a lot of frustration on that end too, that they only get to buy from a couple of companies. So we've been contacted by over 80 companies to buy beef today.
But at this point, you haven't gone into partnership with any prospective customers?
We haven't yet, but we're finalizing some of that. We will have a major partner on off.
I think you need to.
And we will. We're working through that. So what we wanted to make sure is, A, do we have the capital to build? Can we build the right plant, a highly efficient plant? Are we in the right location? Once we cleared all those hurdles, that's a big part of what a retailer, an end user wants to know too.
Sure.
Do you guys have all your ducks in a row so when we're ready to buy meat? So before we break ground, we'll have a major partner signed up to buy the product. Another way that we've done that we feel is really important is these old plants, they're old, they're tired, they're inefficient. They started by, processing 2,000 head a day, they're doing 5,000 head a day.
Right.
And, there's plants in this country that, if you built them today, might have 2 forklifts and they got 36 running around that plant, things like that. The way we've designed it with new technology, proven technology, our technology came out of Europe, New Zealand, Australia. And the reason we're doing that is they hit their labor issues 20 years before we did. So in a world where labor's tight, especially in this industry, you got to be as efficient as you can. We will process 2,000 head a day. A typical plant takes 1,200 employees to do that. We'll have 800.
Wow.
400 less employees. That translates to $25 million a year in savings to the plant, which transfers $50 a head cheaper production cost. So our plant will operate at a cheaper per head production cost than any plant in the system. Wow. And that's where you get the margin. So when you start thinking about how they're going to squeeze you out, well, they'd have to start losing $100 a head where we start breaking even. Mm-hmm. And that's an important part of this that we looked at. Again, it's not that complicated to say, I'm going to go build a plant and then just go throw one up somewhere. What's complicated is to be successful.
Right. And I assume you've got your team pretty well set because you've got to have people that have experience in this kind of stuff because it's a tough business.
Yeah, we get asked that a lot, and that's a really important question. And I make sure everybody knows today, I'm the head of the company. I will not be running a plant. That is not my expertise. I've never claimed to be that guy. But what we will do is, the beauty of what's happening in the system is because there's just a few companies that really have the top guys out there. Mm-hmm. A lot of people retire 56 to 60 out of that world, and there's a lot of people, they're not even close to done. Right. There is so much talent in this space that's there to available. We've identified it. We've hired advisors from day one. So I have an advisor that his entire job is just to identify that talent and make sure that when we open our doors, we have the right talent in place. Because there's another way. If you want to fail, just don't put the team together. Try and save money on your management team. That's a great way to fail.
So, we're looking for some new co-op members. And how much risk do you think there is involved in this?
What we've done is we went 2.5 years and we talked to producers and got all their point of views and heard every comment we could talk about. And at the end of the day, we developed this program we're in today. And this is the final program we're going out. So what it is, there's various stages of the co-op membership. You are rewarded to get in early. The first round, there's 5 rounds. The first round is $125 a unit. It goes up $25 every round. It's split pretty evenly through the rounds. So that's not a huge investment in the cattle world today.
No, that's especially the prices we're at now.
The way it is today. How it works is right now it's $25 down. So if you want to buy a unit today, it's $25 down. Okay. That holds your spot. Then we're going to come out in end of the year, right at the end of the year with the final, here's your final agreement, sign up. If you decide at that point in time, you know what, something's changed, I don't want in on this, we'll refund $15. We got to keep 10 because we spent 10 to put the system together. So all you're really putting at risk today is $10. $10 a unit. And if you don't like it at the end, your 15 comes home. If you do like it at the end, before we break ground, roughly 30 days before we break ground, the balance of it will be owed. We made it as simple as we could. To be honest, when we first started this, I was hoping to have the producers own 60, 70% of this. Mm-hmm. We found there's not a lot of appetite for that because then you're talking $500, $600, $700 a unit. Mm-hmm. I understand that. That's a lot of money.
Well, it sounds to me like you're not really looking at this co-op to give the bulk of your capital to build this plant.
Absolutely not.
You're ready to build the plant. You're just giving folks opportunity to get into the supply of the cattle.
The plant's going to get built no matter what because what we've done in 2.5 years is we've found the debt, we found the equity, we're working on all these pieces of the pie. We've got the MPAP award from the USDA, which is the largest, the $25 million you can get from that to build more packing industry, right? So we've been working on all these pieces. At the end of the day, the $100 million, roughly, if you sell 520,000 units, that's come from producers, but that's a $500 million plant. So that's where you get your 20% ownership, give or take. It's a true equity play. And for us, that's the passion of it. The producers need to get involved so we have the final say in the outcome also. Anybody that's in the cattle industry should be in this. And I tell bankers, I'm talking to a lot of bankers, there's not a cattle feeder that I know that shouldn't take this opportunity. When you think about what it costs, if you return $25 a head just on, once a year, it gets one space, but that's 5 years, your initial investment's back just off of that, and then you've risked nothing.
Right.
It's a low risk maneuver that opens up a top end. So we did a lot of data mining to find out how the math works. In the last decade, if you just take an average of how the industry has worked in the past, box beef versus what an average would be is about 61.3% of the box beef cutout is where the industry has averaged in the past. In fact, from 04 to 13, that was exactly what it averaged, 61.3. If you take that same number, extend it to today for the last 10 years, you'll find between what we sold our cattle for and what the packer had at 61.3, there's $206 on every animal of a margin that we didn't participate in. So I've heard a big pushback I've had is, well, if you're going to give the producer all the money, the pack goes broke. Well, I'm here to tell you, the numbers don't lie. You can do the data mining yourself and figure it out. There's $206 on every head we sold in the last decade on average that we didn't participate in that margin. I'm not saying it's all ours as producers. I'm just saying there's a buffer there that certainly there's a middle ground we should all partake in.
Right, right.
We've been told our whole lives, you do it our way or you don't get paid at all. Now we're sitting here saying, if you do it, if we create more value, we're going to pay you for it.
Well, Chad, thanks for all the information here about Legacy Beef Co-op and Cattlemen's Heritage. If folks are interested in making an investment or finding out more about this, where should they go?
Best place to go would be go to legacybeefcoop.com or cattlemansheritage.com. Either one will give you a link to go here to get the information.
Okay. Well, I appreciate all the information today and enjoyed the visit.
Thank you.